say that in French we say no and no. This is very, this is more masculine and this is feminine. So to come back to Lizzie, in her memories, she said that, quote, often people are asking me why I chose a career that is not so female, but as if my destiny was already made and I couldn't make that choice. End of quote. So as if the question was not even there. If we're talking about Sacha Picot, who for the film, it should be said that there was a male approach, male regard, as if she's a stronger woman. But actually, this was a difficulty in their couple because her husband, he couldn't accept that he failed where his wife was successful. So when it comes to Muratova, an exceptional female director, she shows the difference between a female director and a male director very vividly. And first of all, there are works, and there are works that are open to everyone, men as women, women and as men. And the men can do it. Everyone can make a film about everyone. So when this was kept by the Festival of Getafe, this is not only about females, about women, and this could not be justified. And with time, they could understand that 15 directors, that is to say, 15 cinema people, male and female filmmakers, could come together. So to come back to this idea of the category of female film at the same time. At the same time, Audrey Tautou, who went to Venice Film Festival. It's called the Collective of 55, so that there would be complete parity between men and women in cinema, in the field of cinema. So let's say that this is a post-discrimination phenomenon that can so it takes a lead role. This would then become acceptable. And to come back to the Festival of Women, there is, in Caucasus, first Marlene Steve, Soviet director. She was accepted. He was accepted because he was called Marlene. They thought that it's she, but it turned out that it was he. This was funny because in the end, he was not selected because the movie was good or bad, but because maybe it could have been done by a woman, but actually it was by a man. And this was about homosexuality. I think that's important to say because it's quite popular in France. To wrap up, yes, I would like to say some very important words. I would like to give honor to Brigitte Occasion, who has worked on this film with someone really exceptional to be able to promote the filmmakers. He was always doing a great work and, buying rights, finding the necessary scripts, seeing the directors, the script writers, and the script writers of Lenfilm. And at the same time, Alexis Germain has kept it as well. A post of director, a director that she had. So without this woman, a lot of things could not be done. And she was not a director, not a script writer itself. First of all, she was an editor. And she had a very important post. And these films wouldn't have become a reality, wouldn't have come through, and these people wouldn't be able to exist as such. Because I'm French, and I was taught in the French system. When I was a student, I thought that when we were presenting a problem, we had to, instead of solutions, we had to present another problem. Maybe it's a marginal problem, but allow me to say that there is a female misogyny. This also exists. Are there any questions? I believe we will move to the next topic, to the next speaker, because the 15 minutes have already passed. It's none of my fault, that I know. So I'm not stopping anyone. François Naval, she's already talked about it. So I think that how to talk about the different story of cinema. And this is an art of personal understanding of that through the human story. When I started talking about that, I started to get interested in the history of it was about the women character by working with the camera and its role. And it seems that it exists. Coming to my title, how did it work in my short movie? It was created in 1980. Children ask some questions. Where were we born? How I was born? A child asked. And so we don't know how to answer to this question. And what we say that fairy, as in fairy tale, saying that came out from cabbages. Actually, in my story, we see that they are dolls coming out of cabbages. I think in one of the experiences, it shows that till nowadays, this topic is being discussed. So who has started films? But we can also say that it was the second one. We can do the first thing about this like stick that gives a fairy giving the life to cinema. But Palestine, it was not the only thing that he did. He had a very wide production, nearly almost 1,000 short movies, but most of them were lost, and some part of them do not have who is the author of them, who has created them. And it was forgotten. At least the
demanded that her role should be accepted, but it was done just after her death. And it came out just in 1976. It has its impact on, of course, cinematography thoroughly. Of course, after being an actor, you can become the film director also. It was one of the good examples of it, as in Louis Weber case. Before Louis Weber, first she was experimenter. She was doing experiments. She was very brave. Just a short movie by her called Suspense was shot in 1913. The story of this and plot of this film is very simple, but the cinematography, structure, very interesting to visualize. For example, the screen was divided into triangle parts. So you can see how the woman calls the police, how the police answers, and how the robber enters the rooms. This is the year of Louis Weber's death also. And Louis Weber generally is really a good sample of cinematography, a good character. Let me remind you that during that time, for women, it was supposed that she should do some households, but it gave women possibility to work with cinematography world and to become some influencers here also. During those times, women started to get more important roles, and Louis Weber uses this opportunity. There are some movies that we can, even nowadays, discussing social questions. For example, one of them is Where Are My Children? It discusses the problems concerning feminist matters, and also the Shoes film, which speaks about poverty, which makes women to solve unsolved problems. Louis Weber also tries to solve social problems through movies. And thus make movies much more interesting. In 1920s, the recognition started to reduce because she just stopped to be interested in social problems. And it was time when Louis Weber started to speak about other movies, and also Louis Brooke is another example. It is just a modern active women's example. And she just complains of being the passive object for money. Here we should, of course, quote Alinsky. They're linked. Women's emancipation are so much connected. It is impossible to imagine the cinematography history without these women. If these women directors have been lost, the history of cinema, the number of women who dedicated their life to cinema it is impossible to forget them. During late researches, we came to the conclusion that women, there was found a women director, Jean Gauthier, who lived in 1995 till 1966, and she wrote an interesting script. And how we understand what are scripts, maybe she was one of the founders of it. Actually, it was a plot from manager to the cross. And as Alinsky, she wrote just about her memories. She demands the exception of her role. And despite the fact that her role is accepted today by specialists, Jingo Ken still is not entered to cinema global history as a director or at least as a script writer. These women are even more, but I would also mention Frances Marion, whose career started in 1930. She got married, was gained Oscar prize. But the interest towards women directors came later. During some period, they were not getting their role as they deserved. And so, these women were thinking that cinema has no future, and they were thinking like would get 20 when cinema systematic was created. Cinema has become got to avoid women in this game, because this game was getting serious, and they decided to exclude women. Women were not for such type jobs. It was how everyone was thinking about. We are becoming the witness by watching through history periods. And we see like cinema has become manized, if we may call so. There are two cinema representatives, figures, Maya Deren and Germaine Dulac, who was working in France, and Maya Deren in the USA, that are just being included in the cinema world. And after 60s, the women came back to the state of narrative cinematography. Here we have also Lina Wertmüller and Italian Agnes samples. But unfortunately, women are not the best percentage in cinematography. Women do small budget movies. It doesn't depend even on project. Of course, there are exceptions, and I would like to mention there the American Catherine Bigelow, who was the first woman who got the Oscar for Best Director in 2018. Maybe because of best movie, and this movie is about going against the idea that women can success only in several genres. Maybe just because of this. We should draw parallels with Frances Marion's Oscars. We are speaking about the Brick House movie, which was shot in 1930. Let me just conclude. Let's wrap up with the news that during last days I have heard, during 80 years of different international companies that are doing researches and classification. They for it was known movie. It was on the top of it. It is about John Dillman's movie. It is a movie of Belgian director. And all the others didn't know about this film. Of course, it has its value, but it doesn't have the value that it should be on the top of them and one or something movies. I have the impression that it was chosen just because of political correctness. But finally and eventually, I'm happy if this choice may help women to get their place in the cinematography life and take back what it was stolen from them. Thank you.
Եթե ամբողջ ժամանակ օգտագործեք պրեզենտացիայի համար, ժամանակ չի լինի պարզապես պատասխանների համակարգված հաջորդը ո՞ս Ավետիսյանը Պարմեցին
representation across the world may seem quite a utopian idea, because even if, for example, men and women are distributed equally, this might leave out the LGBT community, and still we need to strive for equal racial representations, for example, equal representations of residents and immigrants, etc. As festivals focus their attention on these overlooked layers of society, and given that across the board this equality is practically impossible, and even if possible, to someone it may seem absurd, because modern history suggests that this objective can be pursued not through a package solution, but also to a face-by-face approach. For example, there are some festivals or American Academy focus on LGBT issues that was followed by a spotlight on immigrants, after which was Oscars So White movement, the same BLM, and which preceded Me Too, with attention now turning generally to gender equality. And this doesn't mean that this sequence obediently followed the above-mentioned algorithm. It may at times mixed and occurring in parallel to each other, but nonetheless certain areas of focus were always in the foreground. The Oscars will require proof of diversity in the cast, crew, subject matter, to quality the best picture from the recent years, and despite roughly half of film school students being women, only 21% of European films between 2017 and 2000 up to 2021 had female directors, according to the European Audiovisual Observatory. In a study for 2022, the Council of Europe reported that women accounted for 25% of directors, and the Council points out that this figure needs to be tempered by the fact that on average women directors direct fewer films than their main colleagues, but co-direct more than men. In general, with men themselves. The average number of women directors per film is 22%, a figure that has remained stable since 2017. The recent test put this award-winning films through the scanner of large databases containing thousands of films. This test is set on three criteria, conceptualized by a very famous comic and cartoonist Alison Bechdel in 1985, which is the following. There are three criteria. The first one, that in a work of art, in a film in this case, at least two, there must be at least two named women, whether it's surname or first name, but two characters, named characters. The second one, they should speak together. And the third one, they should talk about something that has nothing to do with a man. And while this test shouldn't be taken, of course, as a label, it doesn't allow films to be compared with each other on the basis of these criteria. It's not an official object, of course. The existing databases do not cover all the films in existence, like some of the major cinema databases, and depending on the festival, the corpus covered ranges from 33% for the Berlinale to around half for Cannes and the Venice Film Festival, and almost 80 or 98% of the films awarded on Oscar for the best feature film. For the three festivals for which the results are starting to be significant, the picture of the point of view of the test is mixed. For the representation of women filmed and scripted predominantly by men. 28% of the screenwriters for European films produced between the same period of time, 2017 up to 2021, according to the Council of Europe's report. At the Oscars, and 47% of films fulfilled those three criteria. At Cannes Film Festival, half of films were studied by participatory. This database is close to the result, with 44% of the films that met this criteria. The Venice Film Festival, with 55% of films studied, does slightly better, with 61% of films passing this interesting test. Though generally in France, the measures taken by CNC, such as parity bonus or the requirement for parity of festival juries, are beginning to bear their positive fruits. And Armenia hasn't been exception from the rest of the world. Female representations in the art historically is rare, and this applies to various forms of art, from painting and architecture to photography and cinema. And to this day, the general population out of this whole cannot name a single Armenian woman filmmaker from 20th century. Of course, there will be some changes in 21st century with the rise of new names. However, in general, the scale is still far from being balanced. And while preparing for different editions of recent editions of Golden Apricot, the Yerevan International Film Festival, and having as an example the gender and equal representation policies of leading European film festivals, we are also thinking whether it would be wise to implement these quotas or at least some unofficial regulations in keeping with the current focus of International Film Festival. However, simply going through the list of applicants was enough to come to a rather to a very astonishing conclusion. In this director's name column, 60% of Armenian submissions were fulfilled by female names, and this is very surprising, considering that according to official statistics, out of all directors of the world, only 7% are women. The applications Golden Apricot has received from women directors feature a variety of genres and covers a wide range of subjects too. Alongside films about women's issues, we have many other submissions, including fiction, documentary, short, feature-length films, etc. And it's possible that global these processes occurring far away from Armenia have had their conscious or unconscious effect on us as well. That time will tell. And for now, however, one thing is clear: without any regulations or other types of interference to support the greater participation of women, the festival has organically found itself in a situation that many European film festivals and international organizations dream of being in, a situation many forgotten women could never have dreamed of. Cultural and human rights trends and concepts of, let's say, Western world have their amazing indicators in such a conservative and patriarchal country as Armenia, and we're infinitely happy that Golden Apricot serves as a progressive platform for such happy findings. Now the only concern we have is that with such a proportion in numbers of submissions, male applicants left in the minority and might start feeling underrepresented. Although as a male, I'm extremely happy for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was Karin Avetisan, Artistic Director of Golden Apricot Film Festival. So we have a good news that break that is in a schedule. It will be happen, and there will be coffee and tea for 15 minutes. But now, Sonakara.
Thank you very much. So the topic that I'm going to talk about is the female animators of Soviet Union, and also in my talk I will include one of the directors who was working in high film throughout her 10 years, no, probably 20 years of her career, but she didn't direct the film herself then in high film, but since she was the carrier of the Soviet film school and started to do her films much later, she is included in the program and in the talk. Her name is Naira Muradyan, and I will talk about her later. So all the animation films that are mentioned in the article and also in the talk were made in High Film. High Film was the main financing body of Soviet Armenia. It was established in 1923, and at the beginning, the first 10 years, the studio was mostly making documentary films and the fiction. The Department of Animation was established in 1936 by the very famous animator Lev Atamanov, and it was revived much later in 1967 by Valentin Podpomogov. The department strengthened its position due to lots of artists who got their education in Russia and started to come to Armenia to work. These professionals were Armenians. The animation group enjoyed much more freedom than the neighboring fiction and documentary departments, and besides that, it was unburdened by the sexual discrimination that was unfortunately quite common in Armenian film production, as already Karen mentioned. And the long list of female animators is the evidence for this. For example, Gayana Martirosyan, Lyudmila Sahakyan, Aida Sahakyan, Hazmik Poshutyan, Elvira Avakyan. All these members were working together on the same film, for example, serving for each other as a cinematographer, as a production designer. For example, Alisa Kurdian was the cinematographer for most of these animations, or Naira Muradyan, whom I already mentioned, she was a production designer for several of the films that these female directors did. Throughout the group's active period, which spanned several decades, each of these female creatives developed their own style and had an undeniable impact on the formation of the worldview and aesthetic perception of the latest two generations to come. At least two generations to come. The animations made by the studio were usually either stop motion puppet animations or graphic animations. For example, Gayana Martirosyan decided from her earliest career period that she is going to do stop motion puppet animation for children, though her first film that was an assignment for her graduation from the university was a graphic animation that she co-directed with Vladimir Mailyan. The animation was called Happy End, and it was made in 1978. Though animation is very witty, it's funny, colorful, but Gayane doesn't consider it as hers in a way that it was co-directed, and she always says that her first film that she did is the one that she did in 1981 that is called Three Pieces of Advice from a Wise Man, that is based on the very famous fairy tale by Hovhannes Tumanyan. The film, however, came with lots of problems for the director because she decided to change the ending of the fairy tale and in the animation, because in original of Tumanyan's story, the main character dies and wolf eats the person, the character, but she decided that there will be a happy ending, and that's why the film was called Happy End, and it really outraged all the high film artistic committee members who didn't want to confirm the film. But only later, when the authorities in Moscow allowed the film to be shown in the cinemas across the whole Soviet Union, it was accepted in Armenia as well. The changing of the ending was part of the director's approach to creating content for children, because she really believed, and she still believes, that kids should know about evil, but they also should know that there's always good that is going to win. Another film of hers, very important, considered by herself and not only, but also by critics. It's called War in Our Street. It was done in 1981, right after the Sumgait pogroms in Azerbaijan. And it was her response to the growing wave of ethnic hatred against the Armenians, as well as the condemnation of the approaching war. She says that even in Armenia, in Armenia as well, there was a need to explain to children what it means to have an enemy and how you should approach to the person who has the nationality of this enemy, especially in Armenia of 1980s, where there were Azerbaijanians. And that's why she made the film, short animation based on the short story of William Saroyan. That is set in the US during the First World War, when children in the school are very upset because of the war and because of the Kaiser who started the war, and they make a decision that they should beat up the German boy from their neighborhood. And at the very end, the main character understands that actually he doesn't hate the Kaiser who started the war, but he hates what they did, the bad thing that they did, because this person, he has the nationality, but he is not the reason for this war. Another animator, a super important one, Ludmila Sahagyans, joined High Film around the same time as Gane Martirosyan. With her strong background in literature and philology, she started as a scriptwriter, and her first work was a debut film of a very young animator named Robert Sahagyans, who would later become one of the most prominent animators of Soviet Union. A few years later, Ludmila Sahagyans made her directorial debut with the animation The Congregation of Mice, 1978, based on a fairy tale by Atabek Khangoyan. The film's dark and disturbing atmosphere, which was unusual for High Film, along with the inspiring voiceovers for famous Armenian actors, immediately drew the attention of both young and adult generation audiences and turned it into a most remarkable film of the studio. With this debut, Sahagyans set the stylistic direction that she would follow throughout her career. Her films feature dark colors, a critical and ironic tone, literature sources inspired by medieval parables or lyrical poetry, as well as she has a lot of generous use of music in her film. Out of all the directors presented here, Elvira Avakyan's style has the most contrast and variations. She joined the animation group in 1980, and before that she used to work in Moscow, and she assisted Yuri Norstein. Then she moved to Armenia, took her husband's surname, Gagik Avakyan's surname, and unlike all the other animators discussed or to be discussed here, she didn't carry the her inspiration wasn't obviously coming from the Armenian literature or folklore. So she followed the style of Russian animation. Very colorful, color-styled animations were mostly made for children. By the end of 80s, the nationalistic revival resulted in Armenian iconography was widely used in animation and in cinema. One for these examples is Hasmi Proshotyan's Armenian alphabet that was done in 1992, which depicts Mesrop Mashtos during the creation of Armenian alphabet. Proshotyan began her career in cinema as a production designer and collaborated with another interesting but largely forgotten animator, Aida Sahagyans. Their first collaboration occurred with the creation of animation almanac, Three Fairy Tales, 1984, which again was based on short stories by William Saroyan. Within the almanac, Proshotyan and Sahagyans directed The Big Mousey, a minimalistic and graphical short film about a small mouse with a big ego. Sahagyans' stylistic signature of few colors and pale silhouettes prominently expresses itself in Labyrinth, 1988, and Labyrinth in 1993. Inspired by Armenian folktale, Labyrinth waves the story with very, very beautiful characters on a gray and endless canvas that also puts together some documentary shots. So it's a mix of animation and documentaries. And after Labyrinth, in her other films, the documentaries were more present. The relatively liberal and also inclusive atmosphere of Armenian animation has also allowed very young female talents to join the production department. One of these talents was Naira Muradian, who joined High Film towards the end of 1970s when she was 17 years old. Despite her youth, she was very confident that animation is what she wants to do in her life. And during her admission interview, she says that she has bought some very cheesy paintings and also some nudes. Got it. Yes. And some nudes. And since nudes were very quite well received by the commission committee, she was directly taken to the group and she started to work. And her first project was the production design for Ludmila Sahakyan's 1001 Trick. In the 30 years since High Film dissolved, Muradian has made her become a director and created a short series about poets for TV channel Shogagat. Her unique style involves creating animated collages pieces that she collects from books. I mean, she used to collect from books, newspapers, and journals. In 2012, Muradian made her first big animation that was called Ballet, which tells the story of a miserable Armenian family that also includes scenes of domestic violence. The film allegorically explores the political situation in Armenia and its unavoidable decline, using the same collage style. After Ballet, Naira changed her style and started to do more graphic animations. For example, Marcos and Marcos, Kiko, New Year, Firdos, The Winged, and some more. Armenian film history is associated with numerous names, but often only a few films made by the prominent figures of the time are highlighted, while the rest are neglected and forgotten. The female artists presented here belong to the later category, as their remarkable contribution to the development of Armenian animation have yet to be explored and probably appreciated. A majority of the animated films discussed here are unique pieces of art that not only deserve scholarly attention, but admiration as well. Exploring the history of Armenian animation cinema reveals that the field was an almost unique island for inclusiveness, innovation, and comparative freedom. Female filmmakers not only had a chance to contribute to the film field, but also to create local traditions and visions of animation themselves. This fact may help break the stereotypical and patriarchal ideas about the history of Armenian cinema and rethink the importance of animated film in the context of Armenian contemporary art more broadly. In the recent years, as contemporary Armenian animation has gained international acclaim through the work of female artists, it seems especially relevant to reconsider the role of female directors in animation heritage. Ina Sahakyan's internationally celebrated Aurora Sunrise 2022, Lilith Altunyan's When I'm Sent, again 2022, as well as the works of producers Armine Harutyunyan, Armine Anda, and Susanna Khachatyan, are obvious demonstrations of a revival of the animation school. They confidently demonstrate the fundamental and continuous contribution of female artists in Armenian animation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sona. Sona is a programmer with Golden Apricot, and also she was running industry platform for several years. It's time for coffee break, but please be back at 4:30 sharp. We have still 3 very interesting presentations coming. And yeah, please enjoy your break. Yeah, please take your seats. You can grab your coffee, tea, bring here if you want to have just next to you and go in parallel. Խնդրեմ համեցեք բոլորդ ներս եւ
Inviting everyone back.
Ժաննա ջան, եթե
Ժաննա?
միջանցքում մարդ չկա,
If there are no people in the corridor, please close the door. We're ready to start.
դռները փակեք սկսենք։
Close the door. We're ready to start.
Okay. We are not waiting anymore. I'm sorry for the delay. The next speaker is Anna Barshan, and the topic will be the leading actresses of Armenian silent cinema. And Anna Barshan is here. Thank you.
I will start, Melik. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone. for the interesting and deep presentations. And today I would like to talk a bit review about the Armenian silent movie actresses. At the beginning of in the early 20th century, silent aesthetics that was created made it be parallel to among other arts. And the technical revolution expanded the abilities of people.
Կատարելագործնողների Երևան եկան պատկերավորման հնարքներ, ինչպես խոշոր եւ միջին դրաներն էին, տեսախցիկի շարժումը եւ ռակուրսային նկարահանումը, ինչպես նաեւ ինտերտիտրելի
Intertitle, etc. It was a great honor for actors and actresses to be part of the movie. What was important is that it's not only for silent film, but also later when there was sound. For instance, the Battleship Potemkin by Eisenstein, Putovkin's mother, among others. For the 1993, there was a that came about. Surprise, but also caused admiration because of its technical abilities. This was the first type of technical abilities. First, this was silent, then a combination. Art yet to be comprehended. It is of interest that later creating sound movies were seen as negatives. Negative. It looked like a threat against art. Alfred Hitchcock's idea is very interesting. Silent movie is pure cinematography. The human voice, the human noise are absent. But adding those has not caused the irreversible consequence. We didn't have sound in the past. Sound, we lost all of the achievements that pure cinema had recorded. It could have become real art had it stayed silent and black and white. Among the first films, it is important to say that this were actors theatrical play. Olga Klibercheva, Sofia Margaril, Yulia Sontseva from Russia. Yulia Sontseva was wife of Poroshenko. So Mary Pickford, Louisa Brooks, William Gish, Teda Baran, Paula Negri, and others. In the Armenian diaspora too, there were new artists that emerged. The history knows the actresses and from silent movie. Archie Barchinian, who is a film historian, who is present and has honored us with his presence. It should be said that he studied at large the Armenian filmmakers. The first is Jasmine. This is a nickname. Her real name is Mariam Grigoryan, and in Kiev, she was shot in Protasanov's films. Margarita Khalatian, in 1915, 1914, she mostly acted as a role of women, and Maria Gornicheva, who, according to Mariam Kozanova, was Maria Gornicheva in Ivan Pelestiani's films, and at the same time, we cannot ignore Aurora Martiganyan. Aurora Martiganyan, Armenian Jeanne d'Arc, who, and the Auction of Souls, a Hollywood movie, she embodied her own character, reliving the difficult times of her life once again. The director was Oscar. And in 2022, there was state financing, the Dawn of Aurora, and it has still remained at the big screens. The director is Nina Sagan, production, co-production, Armenia, Germany, Latvia. However, what I'm presenting today is information about actresses who lived and worked in quite difficult times, turbulent times. 1923, April 16, an order issued by the Soviet Armenia that initiated the production of Armenian cinema. Diane Kuzmini taking the lead. Since 2019, the 16th of April has become Day of Armenian Cinema. Starting with the first days of its early development, national Armenian films started to re-emerge, and this is the wealth of Armenian fandom. Actually, it should be said that Armenian cinema is split into two parts: silent movies, 1924 to 1934, and starting with 1934 to date, the non-silent period. It should be said that 32 silent films and more than 50 documentaries have been shot. The 32 were mostly Hamopek Nazarian's presence was really of importance. Hamopek Nazarian had a wealth of experience in the pre-revolution Russian and in Armenia, he already positioned himself as a mature artist. Ivan Papakam and Massimo Pirosyan, Ivan Peretyan, who are really and truly seen as pillars of Armenian cinema, emerged there as well. Actors of Armenian drama theater we embodied the ancient tradition of art and also Stanislavski's art. They started appearing in a new and a bit strange art. Before, they were used to being present in front of the population that would be looking at them on the scene, but this was unbeknown to them. It should be said that the Armenian classical writer Shivan Zadeh wrote Namus, and this became a script for a feature film. And the director was saying that starting with his youth, he had always been interested in this topic. He was interested in the tragic fate of the main character, the female character. So I would like to know that the posters that you can see on the screen have been given to me by Melik Karapetyan very kindly, and thank you for this valuable brief. In August 1924, Hamopek Nazarian is writing about this. On the crossroad of Spantanian and Italian, there is a one-story building. And a great number of people have Hasnik, Richa, Nina, Arus, they're all there, they've gathered, and they're saying that they were invited to play a role in the film of Namus. Cinema was completely unknown to them, a strange field, a different and quaint reality to be experienced. They did not know whether they would meet the needs of the director. In Namus, the role of Mariam, the mother, was ubiquitously given to Hasnik. Hasnik is a nickname. The real name is Takuria Kopyan, and the stage name was given to her by Hovannes Sapolyan. In a quaint manner, he considered that the name Takuri would be a bit outdated. Hasnik was born in Nakhchivan. She started her acting in a small theatrical group when she got married at a very young age. She was a mother of four, but she did find the strength to go to the stage. Her mother-in-law was lost when she heard about her daughter-in-law's ambitions, said, quote, "Crazy this lady is," end of quote. And of course, she was a mother of hers. This was really new, but her husband did yield to her desire, and he only agreed that she would play the role of elderly women. So she mostly acted as a woman who would be a mother and elderly women. Starting with her first steps, her acting skills had great acknowledgement, and she became one of the great artists of Armenian cinema of the time. I think that maybe, I don't know why I cannot see this. Okay, you can see. In Namus, for the first time, Hasnik could represent a woman, a mother struck by grief, and does this using the opportunities of a silent movie, not being able to speak, but just sufficed for her to be able to convey her skills. She embodied Susan's mother, using her entire armor she could stay in the memory of the spectator. In the role of Mariam, she really touched the heart of those present. Because Ellen was saying that need to use glycerin and onion, but she really didn't need this. She didn't need a makeup artist. She could have real tears, and she could touch the heart of those who were watching her. When asked how she could embody the character so naturally and feel the excitement, she responded, during this time, I remember my own trouble, my own griefs, my children's griefs, and this makes me cry. The biggest difficulty when it came to Susan, when this role was selected, because I am writes. Interesting face, exotic dresses. This is what the spectators were used to seeing in our Eastern films. But I wanted to show her in the way that she was painted, pictured, and she read that as novel. After many mantle shoots, they would select Maria Tatieva, who then went on to become a professional actress. The viewer loved her. The second is Shushan in the film Evil Spirit. This is another embodied by Hasmik. And here too, the actress plays convincingly. You know, she's doing laundry and she hardly earns her, makes the end meet, but she makes her daughter get married. In a different movie called Slave, she has a completely different role. You know, it's about she's a victim of punk people and she becomes a slave of work, so she resists the current order. Later, she has acted in other films, Yazidis and Kurds, and what is more famous as Dikor, a silent film where she was the Debbie, the Tiflis mother, and this was a great success as well. In the house, in the memory of the viewer, the time is up. Okay, just a couple of minutes. So very briefly, 1 minute only. Okay, I have to have use more. Okay, allow me to pass to move on. I also want to necessarily mention the names Nina Manchagan, Olga Mansurian. I would like to speak a bit about Tena Maria Terosian. In the film Zarem, when the shootings of the film first started, which is about Kurdish life, it depicted the Kurdish life, and this was shot it was screened in 1926. Great thing is about the main place. She would be, if she's a part at the time were made by quite famous authors. This is another important piece of information to be shared. So Olga Tilasian, for Beck's wife, and for the main protagonist, Maria Tenazi. This was the people selected. There were very scarce makers, but I got the family album of her famous aunt and her personal object. You see on the right of the screen, you see this handkerchief, which shows that she belonged to the family. She was born in 1991 and graduated from the technical college, and she had a character of composition. Later on, and that she Kurdish dress and the German on her shoulder, it didn't think that she was fully Kurdish. As the role of the artists and laborers. Okay, wrapping up something silent movie is crucial. These people, the actresses and the gestures. This ladies, these actresses overcame great difficulties when they started to be part of the cinema. But we don't know much. We don't know the salary they got. They didn't have a life of a celebrity. They didn't give many interviews, and many of them are simply forgotten. Today was just a modest attempt to talk about this great, beautiful, and wonderful woman. Thank you. Thank you so much. What you have to tell por direct precisamente inicio servicio y fusionei manai net autobus porque si los government signal chumanak se rabiato si akan is in hakatsvat eta potentially stem yes direct you know damage ka transfer ये sound में ये discussion because after the next class we have some marketing debate y vota after this after from Shana with some yes
Our next
is Mahajota Hajosi Joseph Bennett
Owen, yeah.
Owen Thanks
so much. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to listen to you all talk about Armenian film. This presentation is about Armenian film,
in the presentation
by Pedro Costa.
Mercațul Vitalina Varela este Drogostai համագործակցության մասին այստեղ
And as a collaborator,
համագործակից դերասան եւ որպես կապոստը
of the ghetto, but that doesn't mean that Pedro Costa should take it as a compliment. Armand White's characterization says
շարքեր որպես չեկոց հիմնական կերպարները գտնվում էին լույսի ուսվայրի մթության լույսի
Costa doesn't claim to produce painting in the manner of the Dutch cinematographer Leonardo Simoes. Costa's canvas sit on the cusp of night as if the poor spend the Depictions of poverty are inherently dubious.
Իրականում մենք տեսնում ենք այստեղ Վիտալինա Վարելայի շարք պատկերներ
who pursues it,
եւ ֆիլմը
whose conviction to as they are is to show unavoidably what they are without. Vitalina Varela is about and named after a woman who arrives in Portugal from Cape Verde 40 years earlier. The false promises. They were building a house in the mountains. Vitalina has come too late for a reunion because Joachim's has taken 3 days. Fontanias, which is a neighborhood in Lisbon that now to officially exist. That Vitalina is a real person to which these approximate events happened raises intellectual and ethical queries, which are made conspicuous to blow
իրագործում է մի շարք ֆիլմադրության վիզուալ հերոսը ու տառապանքը այստեղ ալովարամիկան հատված մենք կարող ենք խոսել քասման բողոքույթները ֆիլմի մասին, որը 1940 իրադարձությունների արտացոլումը այստեղ մենք տեսնում ենք, որ Արսենին արդեն վերադարձել է կոնֆլիկտի դաշտից դուրս է եկել եւ այս տարածքում նրանք արդեն իսկ ազատ են։ Պատկերում դուք տեսնում եք, թե ինչպես է Ջոն Ֆորդը վերցրել այս պատկերը, ցույց տալու համար անհատի անհատական ազատությունների մեջ նրա նկատողությունը ցույց մատնանշանային արի կասնեք նաև հերոսի ստվերը, որը կոստային շատ բնորոշ հատկանիշը նա խրախուսում է իրականացումը մերժելով հակառական ստանում է դեպի կերպարի տարածք կոստայի ձեռագիրը չէ հաստատի կոստան ինչ-որ բանապատուցելու համար ստվերի հետ շատ հեշտ է կարողանում աշխատել Վիտալինան գնում է և հայտնվում այնպիսի իրավիճակներում, որտեղ նրան առաջարկում են մնալ հույսի շող ունենալով այդտեղ ինչ կարող է այլևս փայփայել և նրա արդեն մահացել է Ոստան նրան դրբերքում իկոնայի նման տալով և Վիտալինայի ճակատագիրը դնում է նորից բերում է կենտրոնական թեմա որպես Կոստայի իրավիճակը այստեղ անվերջ քննադատորեն մոտենալն է իր կերտած ֆիլմին դիֆենսի մասի ասել որ ֆիլմը պետք է այն լույս խոհանոցից իջնելով աղքատությունը մուգ բույնով և ուղղակի ստվերով էր պատկերված Այս գույները մեզ որոշակի հոտ են նույնիսկ փոխանցում Կոստային բնորոշ պատկեր կերտելու տարբերակներից մեկն է, որը մեր մեջ կարող է զգացմունքային և էմոցիոնալ այլ շերտեր բացել Ընդամենը դեպի ներքև իջնող քայլում որքան ասելիք ունի Եվ Ինչ քաղաքականություն է, որ իր խնդիրն է դարձնում ամիսներ շարունակ արձանագրել այն ժեստերն ու խոսքերը, որոնք արտացոլում են աշխարհի թշվառությունը։ Վիտինային տալիս է սինեմատիկ կերպար։ Այստեղ մենք տեսնում ենք հարաբերությունը Եվ թե ինչպես պետք է սև համայնքը ընկալվի հանրության կողմից, ինչ կարող է անել այդ քաղաքականությունը դրա հետ և աշխարհը ինչպես է առերեսվում թշվառության հետ։ Այստեղ իհարկե շատ բազմաբարդ են շերտերը, որպես սևամորթ կին նա և շատ հաճախ Վիտալինայի կյանքում այս թշվառությունը առաջնորդում։ Ես կարող եմ ասել, որ Կոստայի պոետիկան հետևյալն է, որ նրան անվերջ ասում էին, որ լույսը մի օր կգա, այսինքն այդ միայնությունը մեղքելու է լույսով և բաց Իսկ արդեն իսկ տեսնում այստեղ մետաֆորիկ նկարագրություն ենք մենք վերցնում այստեղ իրականում ամեն ինչ չէ որ հիշողությունից է արթնանում երբեմն դուռը ուղղակի դուռ է որը դες կտանի դեպի հաջորդ սենյակ եւ ոչ թե լույս կբերի Դուրը այստեղ կառույցի կարևորագույն հատվածն է, որը կամ երբ պիտի մատնանշի կամ պետք է դժվարություն ավելի ընդգծի, վերևից լույսը դնելով ցույց տալով սեփական անդի դժվարությունը։ Ֆիլմը նաև հետադարձ ֆլեշբեքային ամոթացում է ցապերում այնպիսի իրավիճակներին որտեղ նա կորցրել է իր սիրելի մարդուն ու այլևս ոչինչ չունի կորցնելու եւ այդ սիրուց այլևս ոչինչ չի մնացել Վիտալինայի կյանքի իմաստը կորցնում է ոչինչն է նրանց սկսում ուղղորդել քանի որ սերը այլևս առաջնորդող ուժը չի եւ մենք տեսնում ենք այս կադրերի հուսահատ պատկերը Վիտալինայի համար պարզ է որ նա այլևս նպատակ չունի բայց նա պետք է ինչ-որ կերպ գտնի այստեղ երկխոսությունը ավելի շատ գոյաբանական բնույթ է կրում, էքզիստենցիալ բնույթ։ Եվ այստեղ մենք տեսնում ենք վարթե և տարեթիվ, որը գրված է ամուսնու մահվան տարեթիվը։ Վիտլինն նույնիսկ թերթից կտրված հատվածներ է պահում, որտեղ գրված է, որ մի օր նա փախավ Պորտուգալիա եւ առանց նույնիսկ ստեսություն ասելու։ Իհարկե, սա ճակատագրական պատմության հեգնանքն է, նույնիսկ այդ ստեսություն չասելու իրավիճակը այսքան շատ նկարագրել է։ Ժամանակի ընթացքում մենք տեսնում ենք Վիտալինայի կողմից այս հողաթումբի մոտ արված պատկերների նկարները։ Այստեղ մահը հանդիսանում է մռայլության պատկերումը եւ այս տարեթիվը ասես խտացում է, թեպետ տարեթիվը գրված է սպիտակույնով։ Բարձրացնել եւ հնչեցնել Տարածքից դուրս գալով նա անընդհատ ներքև է նա, եթե նայեք պատկերը դեպի ներքև է ուղղորդված։ Այս դեպքում մենք տեսնում ենք նրա հայացքը, եւ նրա հայացքը ուղղված է 1988 թվականին։ Այս ամբողջ պատկերումից հաշվի առնելով համատեքստը եւ այն հսկայական տարեթվերը, որոնք պատմականորեն առնչվում են ֆիլմի հետ եւ մենք եւս մեկ անգամ վկայակոչում ենք նրանց ում կորցրել են եւ այստեղ կա ջանք որպեսզի ցույց տանք որ մի անհատի պայքարը համայն մարդկության լինելու եւ գոյության պայքար անհնար է ինչ որ կերպ փախչել այս ամենից սա դիեթերական ճշմարտություն է որ Սումը ընթանա եւ այստեղ մենք Վիտալինայի բավարարած կյանքը գերեզմ փախուստից հնդերտուքներ մինչև գերեզման այստեղ մենք տեսնում ենք ֆիլմարտադրողի եւ դերասանի կյանքի առայրեսումը որոնք ձեռքի են ընթանում քանի որ այստեղ մենք ունենք բավարարում շնորհակալություն Հարցեր ունենք։ Մենք ունենք եւս մեկ պրեզենտացիա Իրանից, բայց ցավոք թրեչքային խնդիրները եղել են նրանք չեն ժամանել, նրանք իրենց տեքստն են ուղարկել իրենց պրեզենտացիայի, որը դες կփոխանցենք հայերենով եւ անգլերենով։ Իրականում դա 13 էջ է, ուստի երկար ժամանակ կախելի, բայց ինչ որպեսզի մենք երկարացնենք դրանք, ուստի մենք որոշել ենք ուղարկել դրանք այս մեյլով, հայերենով եւ անգլերենով նույնպես։ Ուստի Բաղը մենք նորից կսպասենք ձեզ այստեղ, որպեսզի սկսենք, մենք ունենանք նորից գրանցման փուլը Մենք ունենանք պանելային քննարկումներ, որը ժամը 10-ին կմեկնարկի, խնդրում ենք չուշանալ, քանի որ ամեն բան նորից ծրագրված է, վաղվա ծրագիրը նույնպես չեն ուզում փոխվել։ Նրանք, ովքեր ուզում են մեծ գալ կինոթատրոն, խնդրում ենք լոբիում ստացել մեծ, ավտոբուսը դեպսում կսպասի, որպեսզի չուշանանք։ Շնորհակալություն բոլորին։ թարգմանիչներին եւ Հայաստանի ազգային կինոկենտրոնին եւ բոլոր մասնակիցներին այսօր բավականին արդյունավետ աշխատանքի եւ հանդիպումների համար կհանդիպենք տեսա